I have the privilege of working with around 40 athletes every single week. I've had the privilege of working with hundreds of different athletes all throughout my career. And honestly, I've gotten to observe even more athletes. You could say thousands of athletes on their mental side of the game. Now, when I talk to athletes every single week, just about every athlete has had the same misconception about the mental game, and it's that discipline matters. Now, take a step back. I know that you hear that and you say, what are you talking about? Obviously, discipline matters for athletes. And I agree. I was the guy that had, call it 20 shirts from Jocko Willink. Jocko Willink, if you don't know his big thing, he's a Navy SEAL, is discipline equals freedom. I'm the guy that at Santa Clara would go around the gym and I would say, who's going to carry the boats and the logs? Because I love David Goggins so much. But here's the thing about most athletes is they think that discipline just in the weight room, discipline in your diet, discipline and all these things are the only things that matter. The tactical, the tangible, the physical side of the game, of their sport, of their life. I'm going to lift as many weights as I can and get as strong as I can, and that's going to solve all of my problems. I think if you're here, you're pretty clear that that's not the case. I always start with baseball because that's the sport that I played, but baseball is 90% mental, and most people train the mental game less than 10% of the time. Now, I am going to own it right away that that is different for every single sport, and that's completely fine. But I'm just encouraging you to have a clear understanding of what actually moves the needle. And so understand that we only have so much energy and the clock is ticking on all of us. And so we need to make sure that we are directing our energy and our attention at the things that actually move the needle. Now, there's a great quote that I stole from James Clear. He wrote the book Atomic Habits. He says, in a world where information is abundant, focus is the art of knowing what to ignore. Information has never been more abundant than it is right now. You can go on YouTube, you can go on Instagram, TikTok, you can order a book off Amazon. There's plenty of information out there for you that will give you an opportunity to learn. But the thing is, when there's so much information, it's hard to decipher what actually matters. In a world of sports, there is a very heavy emphasis on work, on grind, and on discipline. I get it. I love it. These are all things that have inspired me as well. But the truth is I just don't think these things matter in the way that you think they do. They don't matter as much as you think they do. Now, I understand we have to be disciplined with your sleep. We have to be disciplined with your diet. We have to be disciplined with our training. If you don't do those things, obviously you're not going to be great in your sport. If you only ever are doing things out of preference, well, you're going to live a pretty comfortable life and you're never going to actually see how good you can be. And so I have the full belief that having discipline in certain areas in your life really matters. You listen to Andrew Huberman talk. He talks about the anterior midcingular cortex, which is about how doing hard things is good for you. I'm not going to deny those things. I'm not trying to sit here and tell you that you shouldn't work hard at your craft. What I'm trying to get at is that in a world where information is so abundant, we need to focus our attention more on the discipline that actually serves you. And so what is that discipline? In my opinion, I think that discipline is where you put your focus. What do you give your attention to? In a world that is trying to steal your attention, it pays to protect yours. One of the coolest things that you can learn is that your brain is constantly adapting. It's constantly rewiring. Neurons that fire together, wire together. And something that we never learned in elementary school or in middle school or in high school or in college, if you didn't go to school for it, is that you can rewire your brain. What you focus on, what you think about, how you behave, the emotions that you feel, literally rewires you into who you are becoming, and it doesn't discriminate. If you are the person that focuses on all the things that are not happening for you, these disempowering states, you are going to see more reasons to feel disempowering emotions, which goes hand in hand with why I'm trying to communicate that we need to be more disciplined with where we put our focus. If you haven't been living under a rock, you've seen Eileen Gu. She had this amazing quote. I'm going to share it with you here on the screen, but she's talking about how we can rewire our brain. She breaks down these thought processes that she has. She applies an analytical lens to her own thinking and she modifies it.
I spend a lot of time in my head, and it's not a bad place to be. I journal a lot. I break down all of my thought processes. I think I apply a very analytical lens to my own thinking, and I kind of modify it because it's so interesting. You can control what you think. Like, you can control how you think, and therefore you can control who you are. And especially as a young person, like I'm 22, so with neuroplasticity on my side, I can literally become exactly who I want to be. How cool is that? Like, how empowering is that, right? And so the fact is, I get to become every day the kind of person that me at age 8 would revere. Like, I would be obsessed with me today. Are you kidding? I would love me. And I think that's the biggest flex of all time. I'm always like trying to modify. I'm trying to think, how can I be better? How can I approach my own brain the way that I approach my craft of free skiing?
And so again, she says, it's so interesting. You can control what you think. You can control how you think. And therefore you can control who you are, especially as a young person. She says she's 22. With neuroplasticity on my side, I can literally become who I want to be. I'm always trying to modify. I'm trying to think, how can I be better? How can I approach my own brain the same way I approach my craft of free skiing? This goes hand in hand with everything I'm trying to communicate here. Can we focus more of our attention on trying to consciously direct our subconscious? Can we focus more of our attention on being present, on being grounded, on being the observer of our thoughts? I have a great picture up here on my vision board, but it says there's 3 stages of thinking. There's an early stage, there's a middle stage, and there's a later stage. The first stage is I must fix my thoughts. The second stage is I can watch my thoughts. This is when you start to recognize that you are not your mind. Your mind is a tool that is meant to be laid down. And as we can learn to become the observer, the witness of our thoughts, it's empowering. It's like thoughts on a river. A thought comes and you can observe it. You don't have to have an anxious thought come and you identify with it. This is the discipline that matters. That is a discipline thing. Where are you putting your focus? Does a thought come and do you just indulge in that thought? Because if you do, you start to embody a personality around that thought. Oh, an anxious thought, I embody that thought. I over-identify with that thought. And so I start to think like that thought, like an anxious person. I start to behave like an anxious person. I start to feel like an anxious person. And as Joe Dispenza says, your personality, how you think, how you feel, how you behave, the things that you do in your life, determines your personal reality. That's just neuroplasticity. Neurons that are firing together are wiring together. And the craziest part about this is as you start to consciously choose to observe your thoughts and choose who you want to be, those old neurons wither away. They become less automatic. And as you start to think more about who you want to be and you start to behave in accordance with that, and you start to feel the emotions that align with that, it becomes easier and it becomes more automatic for you to be that person. So again, I must fix my thoughts. Stage 1. I can watch my thoughts, and then thoughts arise and pass. It says, I don't need closure to be okay. Understand that having discipline doesn't mean you're never going to have those thoughts. Those thoughts are always going to be there. The thing is you start to recognize that you don't have to identify with those thoughts. You get to choose who you want to be. How empowering. There's never been anything more empowering than that. I wish somebody would have told me that when I was younger. Hey, Drake, wherever you put your focus is who you are going to become. What you focus on expands. I remember when I was a freshman at Arizona State, I was so down bad. I wasn't playing at all. The team was traveling. I was in a terrible spot. I just remember having nightmares about my performance. I remember every thought that came, I was like, oh my God, I'm broken. I'm so anxious. I have all these thoughts, so I must be this. And I never had anybody that taught me that you can actually determine where you put your focus and you are got your mind. And hey, if you want to be this person, get very clear on what that person looks like. This is an intention. Intention is instructions for your brain. Give your brain instructions on who you want to be. What does it look like? I get to work for myself. I get to work my own hours. I get to travel whenever I want to travel. So I'm getting very clear on all the things that I wanted from me, from my job. If you're an athlete, what does it look like to be the best version of you in your sport? Get as specific as you can. Tell your brain what to focus on. Give your brain instruction. Get very clear on what it looks like. And the second part of that is, what are the elevated emotions that come along with it? Now, it is our job to live out those emotions more frequently than we lived out the other ones. Emotions are energy in motion. Joe Dispenza talks about this all the time. And so whatever emotions we are living out is literally sending out an energetic signal to our cells for who we want to be. Here's an example. When you are somebody that is needing, somebody that wants, what does want? What is that implying? Well, it's implying that you don't have. So therefore, it's implying lack. Lack begets lack. Now, what does gratitude signal to your cells? Gratitude signals to your cells that you have. that you have received. And so, can we live in a grateful state? As you list out these emotions, I want to be grateful. When I accomplish everything I want to accomplish, I'm going to be grateful. I'm going to be in awe. I'm going to be present. I'm going to be proud. And so these are emotions that we can get very clear on. We have an intention, and then we have elevated emotions. And now the game that we are playing is how present can we be to catch our mind going one way and consciously direct it back to being the person that we want to be. How do they think? How do they behave? What emotions are they feeling? How would somebody who is in awe behave right now? This is why that question of what would Jesus do is such a great question for people. They wear it on their wristbands because Jesus is patient. Jesus was kind. Jesus had stillness. He was grounded. He approached people with grace, loving kindness. He loved thy neighbor as if he loved himself. And so when you ask yourself that question, it's a quick reframe for you to behave like that person. And if you do that enough, it becomes more automatic and it becomes easier to be that person. We can do the same thing for ourselves. How would we behave if we were exactly in alignment with the person we wanted to be right now? If God came down to you today and showed you your entire life, you were going to accomplish X, Y, and Z. He just didn't tell you when it was going to happen. Next time you failed in your sport, would you be all mopey dog, sad, pouting? Or would you be eager to take the smallest step forward and understand that this path was laid out for you? How would you behave in that moment? Nothing is stopping you from behaving like that right now. That is in your control. That is your choice. We always have our choice on where we choose to put our focus and how we choose to behave. Now, quick tangent on Alyssa Liu. I'm such a fan of Alyssa Liu. I made a series about her on TikTok and Instagram. I have a podcast that I'm still editing about Alyssa Liu, and she's incredible. She talks about how she's attached to nothing. She's detached. She's present. She's grounded. She's non-needing. She's all these things. And people love this idea of no more grind. There's a movement in our world, and I completely agree. It's what I'm trying to tell you right now. But here's where we are missing. Alyssa Liu is arguably more disciplined than anybody out there. Why? Because when her mind goes to this survival state, she quickly snaps back into non-needing, non-striving, non-wishing. She quickly snaps back into gratitude, into love, into joy, into bliss. These are empowering emotions. And whereas call it me as a freshman in college, I had a similar thought. She has those thoughts as well. I had that same thought. I just indulged in it. And instead of it being a 5-minute thing where Alyssa Liu has a bad moment and she gets herself back to neutral quickly, I let that go for 5 months. And then I blink and I'm cut from Arizona State baseball. I'm moving home. I'm having Tommy John and I'm taking classes at a community college. And that is what I'm trying to say. It is a discipline thing, but this isn't the Jocko Willink, David Goggins discipline approach. I need you to go run 20 miles. That's not what I'm saying. It's a discipline thing from where you put your focus, how quickly we can get back to an empowering state, how quickly we can get back to being who we want to be. That is the misconception around Alyssa Liu. She is the most disciplined of them all. And that is what I'm trying to communicate. Now, I teach all my athletes the importance of body language, focus, and self-talk. When we talk about focus, it's everything I'm saying here. What you focus on expands. I went to Tony Robbins. He talked about physiology, moving your body. Your physiology is 10 times more powerful than your focus. But then he also talked about the importance of focus, and he talked about the importance of meaning. What does meaning mean? Well, I'll just give you an example. You're an athlete that goes out there and struggles, and you go 0 for 10 in your first 10 ABs, and you're like, oh my God, I am doomed. You go out there and you throw 2 interceptions in your first game of the season. You go out and you lose a fight on the biggest stage when it's supposed to be your moment, and you lose. Whatever the sport is, it could have nothing to do with sports. But you go out and you lose and you fall on your face. And you say, woe is me. I'm doomed. Now, there's another athlete called Alyssa Liu who says the point of the game is to experience. I'm so grateful for the experience. I will be eager to take steps forward, the smallest steps. And I'll just keep stacking days. Hey, I might not have it right now, but I'm in this for the long term. I'm going to see this through for the next 10 years. I'm going to put my ego in the corner. He's going to be still and observe. And I'm just going to take this information and move forward. Those are two separate meanings, but the quality of your meaning determines the quality of your life. It determines the quality of the emotions you feel, which ultimately determines the quality of your life, because your emotions are just energy in motion. And so what energetic state are you living in most frequently? Whatever you're living in the most frequently, most likely determines who you become. Once again, your personality determines your personal reality. I love the idea of man's search for meaning, where he goes to a concentration camp and he is stripped of everything but his choice. What meaning does he attach to the situation? There are people who attach meanings of, I'm doomed, I'm dead, and what happened to them? They died quicker. And then there are people who attach meaning to it as, I'm going to just take this one day at a time, and this period of my life is about suffering, and I'm going to learn something from it. And the moment that suffering finds meaning, suffering subsides, right? And so they find meaning in this struggle at a concentration camp in Auschwitz, arguably one of the worst situations you could ever be in the history of our time. And he survives. It doesn't guarantee it, but it definitely puts him in the best position possible to survive. That's the power of meaning. That's the power of focus. That's the power of choosing to focus on an empowering meaning. And here's the thing, as you choose to focus on an empowering meaning, it becomes more automatic. It becomes easier to be that person. It compounds. And so can you just stay out of your way long enough to stack momentum? Can you just stay out of your way long enough to compound good moments? And then you blink and it becomes more automatic. This is the game we're all playing. This is what Eileen Liu is talking about. It's so beautiful to see these Olympic athletes understanding these concepts. We've been brainwashed to think that it's all about hard work, grind. What if we just got better at controlling where we put our focus? Now, another example of choice. Clint Eastwood, I've shared this before. He's 92 years old, still making movies. They ask him, how are you still making movies? And he says, every day I wake up, I choose to not let the old man in. And so naturally, he thinks of himself as a younger cat. And so naturally, he's able to go out there and do things that 99% of the world that are 92 years old could never do. Why? Because he's choosing to associate an intentional and empowering meaning with his situation. That's a focus thing. So now what's the tangible side of this? We have to understand what conscious and unconscious means. Conscious means that you are present. You are grounded. You are still. You are here right now. If we could be present, we can be the observer of our minds, right? When you can be the observer of your mind, you can consciously direct your subconscious. You can choose what to focus on. But when we are unconscious, we're distracted. A thought comes and we just indulge in it. We don't even realize that that we're not our mind. We don't even realize that was a thought that was floating down the river. A thought comes and you identify with it. That is being unconscious. There's so many books out there that talk about learning to be the observer, the power of now. I have it right here. You are not your mind. And we can learn this, and we can learn how to be conscious. If you could be conscious, if you could be present, at that point, you can choose where to put your focus. But again, what does that take? Focus. It takes presence, and it takes awareness. It's never been easier to win in our world because the whole world is distracting. Very few people are focused. Very few people are present, and very few people are aware. There's somebody named Em on the Brain. She's a great neuroscientist. She got a great platform on Instagram and TikTok, which kind of contradicts where I'm going with this. But she's talking to somebody, and she recommends a book. And they say, well, is there an audiobook? Because I can't read. And her response is, if you can't focus for long enough to read a book, what makes you think that you're going to be able to focus your attention for long enough to direct your life, to change your life? Maybe we just need to start with reading a book. And so if you're hearing this right now and you struggle to just read, that is a signal for us that maybe we need to retrain that skill of focus. These are all skills that we can develop through intentional reps and through intentional drills. And one of the greatest drills to develop your focus is mindfulness meditation and is reading a book. Quick debrief on what mindfulness meditation is. Here's the instructions. I want you to breathe. I want you to close your eyes, and I want you to be still. I want you to focus on your breath. You can also focus on a mantra, whatever you want. You're focusing on your breath, in, out, in, out. You have a thought come. Don't judge it. As soon as we observe that our mind has wandered to this thought, can we redirect it back to our breath? Then we have another thought that wanders 5 minutes later, and can we redirect it back to our breath? And you're going to start with mindfulness meditation, and you're going to go, oh my God, it's been 5 minutes, and I didn't even realize that my mind had wandered. And that's okay. Can we not attach a label or attach judgment to it? Can we just keep getting reps every single day? And the game is, at the beginning, it's 5 minutes, and then it's 4 minutes, and then it's 3 minutes, and then it's 2 minutes, 1 minute, 30 seconds, 10 seconds. And now you're able to recognize when your mind is wandering and bring it back. That's task focused. Now, another tangent, when you're competing in a sport, you have to be focused on the task at hand. Anything that's not related to the task at hand is a distraction. And if you can't catch yourself wandering and redirect it back to the task at hand, you're never going to be as good as you could be. There's studies out there about how athletes are naturally better at being task focused than the average human being. Why? Because you have to be a good athlete. And so if you're an athlete watching this, what happens when we actually start to train this and we can catch ourselves wandering in our sport, but we can focus our attention back on the present moment? You'll be better for it. What about just in your life when your mind is wandering and you're having all these thoughts that you're indulging in and you can catch it and you can redirect your attention back to the present, back to an empowering state? That is how we transform our life. Quick quote from Cal Newport. He wrote the book Deep Work. He wrote the book Digital Minimalism. He says that an athlete's relationship with their smartphone is every bit as important as an athlete's relationship with diet and with strength training. If you would have told anybody that 20 years ago, they would have lost their mind and said, no way. A phone is every bit as important as strength training or your diet? How so? But nowadays you understand it because it's frying people's focus and attention. Once again, it's never been easier to win because everybody is distracted. Everybody's distracted. They can't focus for more than 30 seconds. Now, I'm going to read you a quick snippet from a little article from Frontiers in Human Neuroscience. It's talking about how mobile phone short video use negatively impacts attention functions in EEG study. It says the pervasive nature of short form video platforms has seamlessly integrated into daily routines. Yet it is important to recognize their potential adverse effects on both physical and mental health. Prior research has identified a detrimental impact of excessive short-form video consumption on attentional behavior, but the underlying neural mechanisms remain underexplored. In the current study, we aim to investigate the effect of short-form video use on attentional functions, measured through the Attention Network Test, ANT. A total of 48 participants consisting of 35 females and 13 males, with a mean age of 21.8 years, were recruited. The Mobile Phone Short Video Addiction Tendency Questionnaire and Self-Control Scale were conducted to assess the short video usage behavior and self-control ability. EEG data were recorded during the completion of the ANT test, The correlation analysis showed a significant negative relationship between the Mobile Phone Short Video Addiction Tendency Questionnaire and Theta Power Index, reflecting the executive control in the prefrontal region. This result was not observed by using Theta Power Index on the resting state EEG data. Furthermore, a significant negative correlation was identified between this questionnaire and the SCS outcomes. These results suggest, what do they suggest? An increased tendency towards mobile phone short video addiction could negatively impact self-control and diminish executive control within the realm of attentional functions. This study sheds light on the adverse consequences stemming from short video consumption and underscores the importance of developing interventions to mitigate short video attention. And so in layman's terms, what is this saying? Addiction to short-form video reduces your brain's activity in the frontal lobe, which weakens your ability to focus. Now, I read this as well. China knows exactly what this does. Their domestic version of TikTok, it caps kids under 14 at 40 minutes a day. So kids in China that are under 14 years old, they are capped at 40 minutes a day. It locks access between 6 a.m. and 10 p.m. and swaps the entire feed to educational content, science, history, and museums. The version they export to everyone else, unlimited, unrestricted, pure dopamine on demand. When kids in the US and China were asked what they wanted to be when they grew up, the number one answer in America was influencer. In China, it was astronaut. Macron calls this a cognitive war. Export what dulls young minds and keep what makes them intelligent for your own population. This is the most effective weapon ever deployed against a generation's ability to think. I just was blown away by that. China has different protocols in place that is protecting their children's attention. And in America, you and I, the kids, everybody is getting fried with dopamine every single day, which is naturally reducing our brain activity in the frontal lobe, which weakens our ability to focus. If you want to learn more about these types of studies and the impact of short form content and just smartphones, there's a great book called The Anxious Generation, where it talks all about the impacts of social media on the minds of children. It's alarming. What I'm really trying to communicate here as we stay on topic is that if this is frying our ability to focus, well, then how are we going to be able to focus our attention on things that are empowering? How are we going to be able to be the observer of our thoughts if we are constantly distracted, if our focus is constantly fried? Think back to the Cal Newport quote. An athlete's relationship with a smartphone is every bit as important as weightlifting and as diet. I read you that article. I shared with you that tweet. It's never been easier to win. Why? Because everybody is an addict. Everybody's addicted to this thing right here. And if you can just have the discipline, there's the word discipline, to control that and then to be the observer of your thought and to direct your attention towards things that are empowering, towards who you want to be, you are ahead of 99% of the world. I had a great conversation last week with a guy named Billy Oppenheimer. He is the research assistant for Rick Rubin and Ryan Holiday. These are two of the most creative minds out there. They literally get paid to help people think better. And what he told me is that they are the most ferocious readers that he's ever come across. So here's the answer. If you want better thoughts, consume from better sources. If you want to be more focused, protect your attention. And again, if you want to think more creatively, if you want to think more in a more empowering way, feed your brain. Just as you feed your body to get stronger, feed your brain with things that will make you think better. Thinking is easy and thinking well is extremely hard. And so we need to be intentional about the things that we put in our brain to make it 1% easier to think well. I love to think about our mind as this beautiful garden. I call it your creative Eden. I got it straight from this book, The Artist's Way. Your creative Eden is a garden, and you have to be the guardian of your garden. You have to pull the weeds. You have to protect it from any of the noise of the external world. This noise affects your energy. It affects what you think about. And naturally, what you think about, how you feel, personality determines your personal reality. It's kind of like when you are constantly around somebody who's negative, and naturally you start to become a more negative person. It turns out whatever you focus on actually has an impact on who you become. And so what am I really trying to say in this entire video? I think discipline matters. I love Jocko. I said it earlier. I have all these Jocko Underground shirts. I rock Jocko. I got to go roll jujitsu at Jocko's gym. I have Jocko on my vision board. I love who Jocko Willink is. But I think that there could be an even heavier emphasis on having discipline with where we put our focus. Discipline equals freedom. I completely agree. But especially the discipline with where you put your focus, with the thoughts that you choose to pour into and the thoughts that you choose to let go. I'm trying to tell you that discipline is less about running 20 miles. It's less about waking up at 5 a.m. and making your bed. I make my bed every day. I love Admiral McRaven. I said this in a couple videos ago. I love those ideas, but those aren't the things that matter the most. Where you put your focus, that's a discipline that can be taught, and that's a discipline that will completely transform your world. Now, another great tool, I have it right here, I talk about it in every single video, is Brick. I understand the power of these phones on your attention. I work with these athletes every single day, and so what did I do? Brick sent me 50 bricks for every single one of my athletes. Every single athlete of mine is using that brick to protect their attention. In a world that is trying to steal your attention, it pays to protect yours. Now, why do I think the brick is so effective? One, I have to tap my phone to the brick to unbrick it. And so if I tap this and I go to the field to perform, I literally can't go on my phone before. I can't do it. I can go on it, but I can't access the social media apps. And so if I want to unbrick it, I have to actually tap it. I like that on the brick, you can set a automatic brick. And at 8 p.m. every single night, my phone bricks. I've been on social media before and it says, back to living. I think it's a great tool, but here's why I really think it's a great tool. There's a great individual out there named Carl Jung. He says, until you make the unconscious conscious, the unconscious will continue to rule your life and you will call it fate. And so this little tool right here, you tap it and you break your phone. And then 5 minutes later, you're on the phone, you're trying to get to Instagram, you click Instagram and it says, back to living. You're like, that's weird. I just bricked my phone 5 minutes ago. You get back to reading. You go, hey, I'm going to go check Twitter. You get to Twitter, 5 minutes later, it says back to living. And so what is it showing you? It's showing you that you have an unconscious pattern, an unconscious addiction that you were just reading. You know you bricked your phone, and now here we are trying to open the app again. And what does that do? The minute that you realize it's an unconscious pattern, it's an unconscious addiction, I promise you it will become at least 1% less attractive. When you realize that the stronghold that this phone has on your life, the addiction that you have, it will become 1% less attractive. And habits that are unattractive are habits that do not stick. And then guess what? You start to focus your attention more. You cannot overlook the value of making slightly better decisions. You start to have more focus. You read a book, you see an impact in your life of how your focus has served you, and it becomes more attractive. And so, what am I trying to say? We just need to break through the initial agitation of overcoming this addiction. We need to make it harder to follow through on that behavior. And above all else, understand that your focus determines your future. That is the discipline that matters. Now, I'm going to conclude this with a story about my mother. It's very personal to me. It's very personal to my family. And I just think that when you hear these stories, you ask yourself, why does it have to get so bad for my life for me to make a change? Why can't I just make a change right now? My mom has pancreatic cancer. She's done 3 rounds of chemo. She's having issues with her bones now. She had a massive surgery from her sternum down to her belly button. It's called the Whipple surgery. Gnarly. It's one of the most gnarly surgeries I've ever seen in my life. And she gets into this emotional state that is disempowering, where she's constantly crying. She's telling me that the chemo will kill her. She's scared. And by the way, if it was you and I'm sure that we'd be scared too. So you can't judge her for it. She's as strong as they come. She's this little 100-pound female that's going through chemo and having these major surgeries. It's terrible. Pancreatic cancer. And the thing that we spoke about this morning was just about how she needs to control the things that are in her control. Above all else, let's make sure that we're dominating the things that we can change. And what can she change? What can she control? Where she puts her focus. There's a book right here, It Takes What It Takes. He talks about in that book how just don't say stupid shit out loud. It's one of the things I shared with my mom. Can we just stop saying stupid things out loud? This is going to kill me. Well, your cells are listening. Be very intentional. Be very careful with what you say out loud. There's another story in It Takes What It Takes that he shares with Nick Saban about the illusion of choice. I'll play you the video of illusion of choice right now.
These guys sort of they all think they have this illusion of choice. Like, I can do whatever I want to do. And we kind of have a younger generation now that doesn't always get told no. They don't always get told this is exactly how you need to do it. So they have this illusion that they have all these choices. But the fact of the matter is if you want to be good, you really don't have a lot of choices, because it takes what it takes. You have to do what you have to do to be successful. So you have to make the choices and decisions to have the discipline and the focus to the process of what you need to do to accomplish your goals. And all these guys that think they have a lot of choices are really, sort of sadly mistaken. And I think, as we all have done with our own children, they learn these lessons of life as they get older. And sometimes the best way to learn is from the mistakes that you make, even though we all hate to see them have to make them. And we don't really condone it when they do.
Now, my biggest takeaway that I want you to have from the illusion of choice is that when you want to be the best, there are not many choices. There really aren't that many choices. And the same thing with my mother. If she wants to be healthy, she doesn't really have a choice. She has to consciously direct her subconscious and choose to be the person that she wants to be. She has to get present. She has to train her focus. It puts us in the best position to be successful. Does it guarantee you're going to get results in your sport? No. Does it guarantee that she's going to be cancer-free for the rest of her life? No. But it puts her in the best position possible to be who she wants to be. But when she is telling these stories over and over again about how the chemo has made her knee inflamed and it's breaking down her bones and it's going to kill her, when you tell a story long enough and with enough conviction, eventually you believe that story with everything you have. Eventually that story becomes true. It's scary. It's disempowering states versus empowering states, but you always have your choice. That is something that's in your control. And so too long didn't listen. You just scrolled to the end of this video. What I'm trying to say is protect your attention. Be the ever guardian of your garden. Protect your focus. Choose to focus on things that serve you. Feed your brain with great books, with great art, with great people. Distance yourself from things that are not serving you, because your personality determines your personal reality. It is a competition for attention. They are trying to steal your attention, and it's never been easier to win. And so if you can protect your attention, you can be intentional about where you put your focus, you're in the top 1% of the world, I'd argue. And that's all I have. If you like this video, share with somebody that you think needs to hear it. I appreciate you guys. We'll stay in process. We'll keep stacking days, and we'll be eager to take the smallest step forward. Thanks, guys.